Women Voters of Marin County for moderating tonight's event, as well as the candidates for their participation. The ARC partners with the League of Women Voters to moderate our candidate forums because it's a nonpartisan organization that does not support or oppose individual candidates or political parties. We encourage our audience to participate in tonight's forum as well. Audience members can submit their questions to belvederecc@marinlwv.org. And now I hand you over to our moderator, League member Lori Nardone.
Guilty. Okay. Hi, my name is Lori Nardone, and I am a member of the League of Women Voters.
We encourage our audience to Belvedere
of Marin County and your moderator for tonight's forum. The Community Media Center of Marin is off screen, providing tech support. Thank you for joining us tonight for this forum, featuring candidates for the City of Belvedere Member City Council. And thank you to the ARC newspaper for inviting the League to moderate this event. We are honored to be here. Slide 1, please. With me are League members Pat Becker as timekeeper, Doug Cooper and Greg Brockbank as question sorters, and Nancy Bell and Dee Dee Buttori for Zoom support. The YouTube live stream of tonight's forum is made possible with the support of our media partner, Community Media Center of Marin. Thank you. The League is a trusted membership organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We do not endorse or oppose candidates or political parties. In addition to promoting voter education, the League participates in advocacy for issues and may take positions on issues that arise in ballot measures. I would like to remind everyone that the candidates have agreed to participate under ground rules set for this forum. In order to ensure impartiality, it is the League's policy that candidate forum team members not live in the voting jurisdiction the candidates represent, nor can they be actively involved in a candidate's campaign. Before we get started, there are some details to review that will help you interact with this session. Tonight's forum is being live streamed on the League's YouTube channel. The viewing public is invited to submit questions to the email address displayed on the screen, belvederecc@marinlwv.org. Through our partnership with the Community Media Center of Marin, this forum is being recorded and will be posted on our website at marinlwv.org.
In America this summer particularly, and you
I'm hearing another
and Democratic governors, but in fact there have been equivalent spikes.
I am hearing someone else's computer.
Word. So the question is,
anyone else hear that?
I think it's a voting
okay.
issue.
Somebody, pardon me, somebody on the Zoom needs to mute. Thank you. Let's see here. For broader community access, a gavel-to-gavel production will be rebroadcast on CMCM TV's Channel 30. Days and times will be posted on our website. I would like to briefly explain the roles of the timekeeper and the question sorter. To assure everyone stays within the allotted time, you will see a box designated clock. At the appropriate time, the box will turn yellow for approximately 10 seconds, indicating the candidate has 30 seconds remaining for their response. The box will then go to black, and when the box turns red, the candidate should complete the sentence they are on. If you submit questions to the email address displayed on the screen, belvederecc@marinlwv.org, anytime during the forum, our question sorters are on standby to review them. I want to assure you the question sorters do not censure the questions, but rather they screen the questions to avoid duplication or anything inappropriate. If you don't recognize your question, it might have been combined with other questions on the same topic. Slide 2, please. There are 4 candidates running for 3 seats on the Belvedere City Council. The candidates with us tonight are Steve Block, Nancy Chemnitzer, James Lynch, and Chelsea Schlunt. Thank you. The candidates have been invited to make a 2-minute opening statement. After that, the candidates will each have 90 seconds to answer each question. To be fair, I will rotate the order in which they respond to the questions. For opening statements, we will begin with Steve Block. Can you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Good evening. This year we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. For each of the last 100 years, the League of Women Voters has protected, promoted, and facilitated voting for all Americans. We are grateful to the League for this work and for hosting tonight's forum. We're also grateful to the ARC for sponsoring this forum. We're lucky in Belvedere to have a trusted local news source in these trying times for print journalism. I'm so fortunate to come from a family with a long history of public service. My grandfather worked as a county treasurer while holding down a third job and running the family dairy farm in Wisconsin. My mom worked in public service as a school psychologist for her career, and then founded a national nonprofit that substantially eliminated corporal punishment from schools. And my brother Greg, who just passed away, founded First Up, a multi-regional workforce readiness program that we're all so proud of. I've tried to live up to their ideals by participating in a number of community service organizations, including Canal Alliance, 10,000 Degrees, MSERA, and more recently, as a director of the Belvedere Community Foundation and as a member of the Belvedere Block Captains Committee. It wasn't a hard decision to run for city council, given these values, and I look forward to serving Belvedere. I've been a CEO of a multinational corporation. I'm an attorney with an active law license. And for the last 3 years, I've served on the Marin County Pension Board. I think that these experiences will serve me well and the city well as we confront the challenges and opportunities ahead. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Nancy Chemnitzer, would you unmute yourself and give us your intro?
Thank you. I have lived in Belvedere for 35 years, since 1986. My husband Brian and I raised our children here, Kristen and Christopher. With grandchildren Mimi and Nolan, Belvedere is now home to 3 generations of our family. So I understand the needs of young parents, like our daughter, and those of seniors, like myself. I graduated from Stanford in 1973, was a Fulbright Scholar in Germany, and obtained my law degree from UC Hastings in 1981. I have been a practicing attorney for 39 years and am retiring next year. My career as a litigator taught me to appreciate different sides of an issue, to look closely at the facts and evidence, and to keep an open mind. It taught me to search for common ground, compromise, and consensus. In Belvedere, I've been on the Planning Commission and committees as diverse as finance, traffic, legislation, block captains, the library, and sea level rise. My priorities are simple: keep our residents safe in these challenging times, preserve the physical beauty and character of this place, and foster community and inclusive involvement by all ages, from children to teens, families, singles, and seniors. To be clear, I am running for re-election to the council, not for a consecutive term as mayor. That role rotates among the council members. But having been mayor during this year of multiple emergencies gives me the institutional knowledge and experience to help every other council member succeed. That is why I am running for a second term. In times like these, experience matters.
Thank you. James Lynch, would you like to unmute yourself?
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you to the League and to the ARC for this forum. I'm running for City Council because I love this community. I moved here 20 years ago. I lived in Tiburon for 8 years before that. I'm raising my daughter here in the local schools. I've redone 2 homes here. And I have served on the Planning Commission since 2014, and I have 2 years left on that. I raised my hand to volunteer for the Planning Commission because I believe in service and the obligation to undertake serving for things that matter to you. And this is my home, and it's very important to me. That together with contributing to the Reed and Redwood Foundation schools has been an important part of what I've done for this community. I brought that same volunteer spirit when I was asked to serve as the chair of Belvedere Seawall and Utilities Protection Committee. And when I was asked to serve on the board of the Redwoods, a nonprofit senior living community in Mill Valley, where I'm now board president. That volunteer service is important to me, and it has kept me engaged after I retired 3 years ago from a career in law with the global law firm Latham & Watkins. I was a litigator, which meant I tackled complex, high stakes commercial matters. That involved diving into very complex issues, listening, understanding, and trying to reach consensus among positions that were starkly opposite. I bring that same skill set, that same listening, that same capability to my service for Belvedere. And I will bring that same service to the City Council if I'm elected. Thank you.
Thank you. Chelsea Schlunt, would you like to do your bio?
I would, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Chelsea Schlunt, and I'm honored to be here tonight, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak to our voters. I'd like to share why I'm running and why it is who I am as a Belvedere resident, as a mother and a business owner that will shape how I lead, define how I'll bring a voice to our community. I first moved to the Tiburon Peninsula in 2004, toggled back and forth a bit, and I came back to Belvedere about 4 years ago. Since I've been back, I volunteered with Belvedere Block Captains, Tiburon Belvedere Joint Recreation Committee most recently. I've helped out at Reed Union School District and the Reed Foundation. I volunteered as a coach on the Tiburon Peninsula Soccer Club. And most recently, I am a member of the Marin Recovery COVID-19 Construction Industry Advisory Group. I make concerted efforts to be involved wherever I can and to give back. My goal is very straightforward and simple. I want to serve Belvedere's residents on our council and give everyone an equal voice. I believe that leaders must mirror the constituents that they serve, and I mirror a large portion of our community. I'm a full-time working mom with 3 little kids. I've got a 2-year-old, a new 8-year-old, and a 10-year-old. Per the most recent census in Belvedere, there's around 450 children under age 18 living in town. I understand the issues facing this group because they're my issues too. From a career perspective, as a principal of a successful construction company, I'm fiscally conservative. I know how to make do with what is on hand. And as a fiduciary of our city, I will have real world experience being budget and being creative if resources are tight. There's a lot of issues facing our beautiful town, and I'm prepared to listen to and represent all citizens if and when I'm on the council. I have a number of priorities, including supporting emergency and disaster preparedness, ensuring that we revitalize our shared downtown with Tiburon through a formal committee, and also fostering community engagement. We need to bring a voice to all the residents of Belvedere to ensure that inclusion and diversity of skin color, lifestyle, thought, and age are respected here. Thank you all for joining tonight.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll start with our questions, and going in order, we're going to start with Nancy for the first question. So, Belvedere is moving closer to a $20.1 million project to shore up its flood barriers and to protect its arterial roads against earthquake damage. What are your thoughts on the project, and how do you propose it be paid for? And if any of you others want me to repeat the question before you answer, just let me know. And you can unmute yourself before you answer.
Thank you. It's a 2-part question. I'll get to both. We often start with the cost, but I would like to start with the need. We got the long-awaited Stetson report on August 20th. It was the product of science, design, and community input. It demonstrates an even stronger need for the project than we thought because of seismic risks alongside the flooding. We as a city are already paying for this on a piecemeal basis. Last year, we had to declare a state of emergency to fix one small part of our crumbling seawall on Beach Road. It cost us about $500,000, and we had to dip into our reserve fund. That is the most expensive way to go about it. This seawall levee project does not just protect houses on the lagoon. The levees are our only roads in and out of town, and they harbor all of our infrastructure. If Beach Road fails in an earthquake, there will be no water pressure to fight fires on the islands, but we are not going to do this if we can't pay for it. I have spent the last 4 years building relationships, looking for funding, and I am encouraged by the grand jury report, which recommends a centralized grant-seeking office. Only when we have the final drawings from the feasibility study, we'll be able to know exactly how much it costs. But we do know it's much less than we originally thought. I look forward to continuing this hard work, looking for outside funding.
Thank you. James Lynch, do you want to tackle that question?
Yes, thank you. A year and a half ago, I was asked by the City Council to chair the committee to protect the seawalls, levees, and utilities. And the question first we were asked to tackle is, what is the problem? What does the soil look like? What is the risk? What is sea level rise? What is the earthquake risk? All of that. That required soil borings, engineering reports, and so forth. We held 6 meetings that I chaired in the last year and a half to try to run down all of those difficult questions and to obtain the engineering and scientific analysis to help us tackle what the problem was. We now understand the problem. The next question is the solution. Part of your question, Lori, implied that we're heading towards a $21 million obligation. We're not there. We are at the point of understanding and agreeing on a conceptual solution, which will then be reduced to what they call shovel-ready drawings. That is, drawings that can be priced out. And so we don't quite know what the price will be yet. We are refining those drawings now that we've come to the conceptual solution that we think is required. And as Nancy, who serves on the committee with me, notes, we're looking at a number of different funding solutions, most notably and most recently, what was identified in the civil grand jury report of last month that identifies the possibility of a joint regional funding opportunity.
Thank you. Chelsea.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, so I'm absolutely in agreement that something needs to be done with our seawalls and protecting our city against the rise of the waters. Your question asked, how do we pay for this? And this is something that, as a Belvedere resident who's always concerned about maintaining my property taxes and making it feasible for young families, for people on a fixed income to live on our beautiful island and on our lagoon, to make sure that we find a way to do this in a fiscally responsible manner that doesn't put too much pressure and burden on the citizens of our town. There is the Office of Sustainability and Resilience at the county level that Mayor Kimitzer had spoken about recently in the ARC. And that's a fantastic way for us to get access to shared resources, be it from grants, be it from just collected shared knowledge of how other cities have funded projects like this. To other people's comments tonight, there's a cost to doing these repairs. And if we don't, it could be orders of magnitude worse if and when there is a disaster. I'm absolutely in agreement too to shore up Beach Road. I live out on the island, and the thought of an earthquake happening and severing the water.
Oh, I thought it was me. Okay, well, that is a shame. And we'll hope that she comes back and joins us. So, Steve, do you want to unmute yourself and take on this question?
Sure. Thank you very much. I'm glad that all the candidates agree that the problem has to be confronted. And that's a positive sign. The elephant in the room has always been, and I think everyone acknowledges this, how we're going to pay for this. The cost is coming down, and I think that's largely due to the great work that Jim and his committee have done in terms of the planning and the revisioning of this project. But it's going to be a big lift, right? It's going to cost a lot of money no matter how much we work these costs. So then the issue is how do we pay for it? And that issue is going to be contentious. There's no way around it. You know, there's already lines being drawn between, you know, the lagoon and the island, and people talking about a battle of Belvedere. That's not where I want to go as a city. My commitment to this city is that we are going to approach this problem in an inclusive and a unifying manner and try to reach consensus. We're going to have discussions about need. We're going to have discussions about burden sharing, and we're going to get to a solution together. I really believe that we can. I also applaud Nancy's desire to find alternative sources of funding. One thing that I like to do is join the Chevron litigation that the county's involved in. I think that's a good place to start. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome back, Chelsea.
Thank you. I just had my own little power outage over here in San Rafael. I'm back.
Oh.
Hi. Yes. Little PS, I think.
Oh, sorry. Well, I think we'll catch up with you in another question. Okay. Okay. So for our next question, we're going to start with James for the first one, so you can unmute yourself. Like many parts in the nation, residents of Belvedere have organized and participated in actions highlighting racial inequities in our community. What is your response to these actions, and how do you think the city has done in responding to these issues?
Well, my response is that it is probably one of the most critical things that we are dealing with, honestly. Well, I saw that video and my hands were shaking before it was over. How have we responded? I participated in the joint city council hearings. I read all the submissions to that. I read all the ARC submissions. I read all the IJ articles and all of the comments to that. And I attended the rally in front of the Tiburon police station a week after the event at Yema. I think the city's response, Belvedere's response of launching an investigation was the proper one. It's critical that run its process, and we can't prejudge what the outcome of that will be. What we do know is that without knowing what the outcome of that investigation will be, we do know that that event was divisive, broadly divisive and passionately divisive. And it identifies a misunderstanding, a disconnect between how people understand encounters with the police, if you're a person of color or if you're a white person. It identifies a disconnect in the understanding of what our liberties are and what we're obligated to do when we are confronted in a police encounter. Do we have to say our name or who we are? The Fourth Amendment says no to that. And there's not sufficient understanding around that. And I think we need to communicate that and understand it better.
Thank you. Okay, Chelsea, you want to unmute yourself? And
All right, hopefully I stick around this time. So
yeah, we hope so.
So the genus of this question stems from what happened recently in August at Yema. And as my counterparts have said, it's distressing on numerous levels. And while I wish that the encounter never had happened in the first place, as Mayor Fredericks over in Tiburon said last week, it's forcing us to address the elephant in the room. If anyone attended the joint town hall, you heard a lot of anger and frustration. If you read the ARC, you saw those comments as well. And given the racial demographics of our town, it's not surprising that there might be some insensitivity or misunderstanding of the plight of Black people in our community, including the owners of Yema. I don't know how they felt that night. So I'm glad we're having a conversation about it. Not only was our council very quick to create this meeting, but they were also smart to launch an independent investigation to what happened. I will acknowledge that just as many people are vocally dismayed by what happened, there are many people in town who are supportive of our police force. I mean, here in Tiburon, excuse me, in Belvedere, we have Chief Wu. He's fantastic. And, you know, we are fortunate to live in a safe community. And I would hope that all people in Belvedere can say that they feel it's safe too. I'm hoping that this can be used as a teaching moment so this never happens again. And together we can come and have our a collective healing to heal our wounds. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Steve, do you want to unmute yourself and answer that?
So I'm less concerned about what happened at Yema than what's going to happen next. And by that, I mean that we in Belvedere, I'm sorry, have had positive interactions with our police force over the years, primarily because the police force operates on a philosophy of a concierge service toward its residents. But we don't know really much about how they operate with respect to people who are not residents of the community, or perhaps who are residents of the community and maybe are different from us. So I think it's very important that as a city, we expect our police force to interact with all residents and all visitors to the city with respect and professionalism, and that the city council conducts sufficient oversight to make sure that that expectation is met. I'm not sure that's happened in the past because I'm not sure we've been aware of the potential for a problem, but we sure are now. And I think that we need to move forward and keep a close eye on this issue and demand some accountability. I want to also say that I really believe in community policing. Recently, the Belvedere Community Foundation bought a electric bike for the police department, and I think that was a great idea. And looking forward to seeing the officer on duty patrolling on his bicycle as opposed to his squad car.
Thank you. Nancy, would you like to unmute yourself and answer that?
Yes, thank you very much. And the fact that we're having this conversation means that this group here tonight is just a part of the broader conversation that is happening in the homes and the streets and the parks all over the peninsula. I took specific actions since I'm mayor. I went down and met with Howie and Yema on a Sunday after the event. I reached out to Tiburon and expressed my interest that it be a joint town hall. At one point, over 400 people were in the participant, under the participant icon that I could see. Like other electeds throughout Marin, I am taking the SURGE workshops in which we examine implicit bias and learn from each other's diversity efforts. This is a Marin-wide effort. I have spoken with the activists. They prefer concrete action to resolutions. So we have a number of actions in progress. Help to the Hilarita. We're joining with Tiburon in a satellite programs. We would like to see more joint recreation programs with Southern Marin. We will have a school district representative present to the council, and I proposed a one-book Belvedere to study Isabel Wilkerson's book, Cast. I look forward to further actions and welcome the comments of Steph Curry's wife, Aisha, who said we want to ensure that our kids live in a nation that is safe, happy, healthy, and fair.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to take a moment now just to remind our viewers that you are invited to submit questions if you'd like to during this YouTube to Belvedere. You can send an email to belvederecc@marinlwv.org. Okay, we're going to start our next question with Chelsea. Belvedere is considering amendments to its 72-hour parking rule. If elected, how would you address this issue? Oh, yeah.
That's a great one. Thank you for asking that question. There's limited parking in Belvedere. I live up on the island on a very small street, and not everybody has parking on property. So There are cars in our neighborhood that have been there pretty much since I moved there almost 4 years ago. So I would be absolutely interested in seeing some of these cars moved along to make space for other residents who need places to park. I don't want it to be a contentious issue because of the nature that there is not a lot of room to put your car, but we do need to be cognizant about not just making code, but also enforcing code. I'm a big believer, especially as a parent, right, that if you make a rule and you don't enforce it, then it becomes effectively useless and then people start to slide. So if we move that direction, I will be in support of enforcing the 72-hour parking rule. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. For the next person to answer that would be Steve. Do you want to unmute yourself?
So the 72-hour rule that Chief Wu is talking about is already in place, but he was asking council to for some additional gloss on how to enforce it by limiting the distance a car can go. I think that the 72-hour rule that we're talking about is really the concern of a limited number of neighbors who have an issue with their neighbors having too many cars on the street. And I understand their concern, but it's not a concern that's shared by most of Belvedere's residents. A lot of our residents don't have garages, or a number of them don't have garages and need to have on-street parking. And so I don't think it works for most of us.
Cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of ballots have gone out.
Somebody needs to mute, please.
And are you counting on the Supreme Court?
Somebody off screen, please mute your Zoom.
Can I go ahead?
Please continue, and clock, if the clock person can you.
I don't have that much more on parking. I just want to say that the bigger issue, I think, than the neighbors having too many cars in the street is really the overwhelming number of construction parking and construction traffic problems we have around the city. And what Chief Wu has told me is that, you know, he's got a complaint-driven enforcement paradigm where he won't enforce the city traffic rules unless somebody complains. I don't think that's the way to approach this. I think that it puts the onus on the citizen to complain about their neighbors, which sets up a bad dynamic. I just like to see some better enforcement when it comes to the parking of construction vehicles and also the movement of construction vehicles around the city.
Okay, thank you. Nancy, would you like to unmute yourself and tackle that question?
Yes, thank you very much. This is the most intractable problem that the Traffic Safety and Circulation Committee has been working on for the past year. And it was one of the first things that we discovered when I reactivated that committee as one of the first things as mayor. There's not a one-size-all solution to the 72-hour rule. Steve's quite right that the rule is already in place. It's just a matter of enforcing it. And as Chief Wu asked us for better direction and clarity about how it could be enforced, we found that it really didn't make sense to apply it throughout the city. So that committee is going to be spending the next 6 months really tracking this down. The first question is what the word move means. So there's been a loophole. People could move their car 2 feet and then he couldn't enforce it. The next thing was how far do you have to move it? Tiburon, I believe, has 1,000 feet. Other jurisdictions in Marin have 500, and then for how long? 3 days, a month, get it out of town. I mean, there's just lots of things to discover. But I think in looking at it deeper, but I agree with Steve Block that the real problem is the construction vehicles, not necessarily the 72-hour rule. It's really the day jobs that are the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And James, do you want to tackle that?
Yes, thank you. So the question is, what would I do as a council member with respect to the 72-hour rule? And the first thing is, I would listen to and support the traffic committee that has been working with this for a number of months. I've been following the progress of that committee for its entire reinvigoration, as Nancy mentioned. And the debate around the 72-hour rule was quite vigorous. There was a lot of conflict, and basically the committee was asked to go back to the drawing board and try to figure it out. The question is, what problem are we trying to solve? And fundamentally, and Nancy and Steve referred to this, it's traffic flow. We don't have a problem with sort of derelict or abandoned vehicles that are polluting the streets. We have a problem with traffic flow. A lot of that is construction related. A lot of it is commute related, or was before COVID. So the question really is choke points on the island. And I think what the traffic committee has come to is that the mechanics of enforcing the 72-hour rule are complicated. They could be uneven, and they wouldn't necessarily in all instances solve the problem, which is the choke point problem. And so I expect where they may come out is eliminating or revising some parking spots at key choke points, particularly on Belvedere Island, and that the question of the 72-hour rule may become a lot less important. But in all events, as a city council person, I would work with and follow the direction of the committee.
Thank you. Okay, Steve, we are back to you for being the first. This is a very long question, so bear with me. Belvedere has consistently had one of the highest COVID-19 case rates in Southern Marin. Currently, 1,052 positive cases per 100,000. The CDC continues to point to mask wearing as one of the most effective ways to curtail the spread of the virus. Meanwhile, Belvedere police receive numerous calls each week about people in the community not wearing masks in public, but officers continue to take an education and enforcement approach, an education over enforcement approach. What do you think is the best way to prevent the spread in Belvedere and to ensure compliance to state and local coronavirus mandates like wearing face coverings? And yeah, unmute, yes. And if you need to repeat it, let me know.
That was a long question, but what I took it to ask is what the enforcement posture should be by our police department to people who aren't wearing masks. It's not, we would like everyone to wear masks. We would like people not to have large house parties or multifamily gatherings, which is something that's happened both in the city and among friends who've traveled. And those are all things that are spreading the virus, right? But it's difficult to enforce this because the rules don't require you to have a mask on if you are, for example, out exercising, provided that you put a mask on when you're close to someone. And so what sometimes happens is that someone will see someone out walking and call the police, and the police will come up and the person will put a mask on as the policeman approaches. And they're not happy with that solution. But I don't think, making citizens arrest over mask wearing is necessarily going to be a tenable solution. I think encouraging people to wear masks, I think when we gave the police department, when I say we, I mean the Belvedere Community Foundation gave them some masks to distribute to the community. I think that's been an effective way to get people focused on the issue when they're not wearing a mask. And where people are continually recalcitrant, then I think we have to enforce it and cite them.
Thank you. Okay, Nancy, would you like to answer that? Unmute yourself and answer that question.
So throughout COVID, I have sent periodic messages to the community, often encouraging mask wearing. The science is undisputed. Wearing masks saves lives. We're still operating under the April County Health Order, and we are educating rather than issuing citations. But frankly, we have issued 37 masks using the opportunity each time to engage the individual. I talk to Chief Wu about this every couple of days, and I think that mostly it is working. The complaints we get are mostly around Community Park, not in random places throughout the city. And I think the reason for that concentration is that is where kids meet to play with each other. So that's about the only place I have really seen a lot of mask slackers. And I've had a lot of great conversations with our teenagers, telling them that I'm the vulnerable one that they have to protect. This is neighbors work, looking after neighbors. And I think for the most part, it is in fact working in Belvedere.
Okay, thank you. James, COVID, mask wearing, please.
Yes, thank you. I'm in favor of it. I think that, the point that Nancy made is a very good one. I mean, one question we have is there something unique about Belvedere that is causing a higher than average in the county COVID rate? For example, a lot of people here have second homes elsewhere, or this is their second home and they travel a lot. I'm familiar with a handful of people who have contracted COVID for precisely that reason. They're either traveling to other states or overseas for work or for homes. And so there could be an unusually high rate of COVID because of that. I am in favor of education over enforcement, but I am not afraid of enforcement. It's not that complicated. Nancy's right. The science is pretty simple. No one takes the other side of this debate. No one seriously takes the other side of this scientific debate. And if we get to a point where our education efforts through the police and otherwise are not being effective around our city parks and with youth or whoever is the body of offenders, then I think enforcement would be appropriate. This is life and death stuff, and it shouldn't be compliance, should not be discretionary.
Thank you. Chelsea, do you want to unmute? Yep.
Yeah, thank you. This is a great question, whoever asked it. Compliance is incredibly important. As part of the Marin County COVID Recovery Commission for Construction, I worked with leaders in the Marin County community to come up with plans to keep not just our employees and contractors safe, but everybody in the community safe. We're going into people's homes every day. The purpose of a mask is not just to protect you, it's to protect someone else. And there's this great infographic that the county has where it shows how the disease spreads to one person if neither of you have it on, if one of you has it on, and if both of you have it on. I don't know what the statistics are for in Belvedere specifically, where we're seeing people needing citations. To Mayor Kimnitzer's point, I'm not sure if it's around the children playing at the park or down by the water by the yacht club. But I think it would be unique if we could partner with our schools. And now that the kids are starting to go back at Belvedere Nursery School, St. Hilary, Reed, Bel Air, to really work with our partners in the school district to talk about the importance of reminding the kids to wear their masks. When we wear a mask, businesses can open, schools can open, we can return to our lives, but that does not happen if we are careless. So again, to everyone else's point, education is what we need to do. I'd hate to see it to get to like an enforcement or citation point. So again, let's find out who in the community is having a hard time following those guidelines, and let's figure out what we can do as a community to support them to change that behavior. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, I just want to remind our viewers again that if you have any questions for the candidates here, you can submit them to Belvedere by sending an email to belvederecc@marinlwv.org. Okay, let's see, we are starting with Nancy on this one. How would you rate the city's efforts to create more affordable housing in the community? And how would you reconcile your community's desire to maintain its small town feel with this growing need? And can you unmute yourself?
Take the first question first. We're in the midst of our housing cycle, which goes through 2023. I'm deeply, deeply involved in this project right now, and it's one reason that I'm running for council. Belvedere is required by state law and regional authority to increase housing units by 16 during this RHNA cycle. We have accomplished some of this number with second units, eliminating any impediments to development. And at the moment, we are also doing it with junior units. We have identified for possible sites for multi-unit housing. And one of the developers is in contract right now and is talking with city staff about what the possibilities might be. So in addition, officials with ABAG have suggested this obligation will only increase. So we have to take this very seriously. We may be able also to do it with existing multifamily through tax credits and other incentives to landlords who we have in town. We have about 200 rental units. People really don't understand that. And there's other incentives we can give to meet our housing needs that way.
Great, thank you. James, we want to unmute yourself and answer that one.
Yes, thank you. So I've been dealing with this issue for the entire time that I've been on the Planning Commission. As Nancy points out, there are state obligations directed to creating new housing in communities throughout California, and that they report back to the state about that. Just last week, we had on our calendar the revised proposal relating to ADUs, auxiliary dwelling units, and JADUs, junior auxiliary dwelling units, and we were prepared to address that and propose our recommendation to the City Council. And on that day, the state came down with some new regulations, so the whole thing got put off to the next month. But the point is, we are directed to and focused on creating new housing in Belvedere. And what's interesting about it is the requirements are that there can't be discretion around design review and so forth. If these units meet objective criteria, they have to be approved so they can get green lighted straight through. What I'm focused on, what I think is critical, is not just that we build them, which we must, but that we incentivize the landlords to use them. It's not enough to have them, right? We have to create incentives for landlords to rent them so that they are filled. That is the second part of this equation, and that's what I'm focused on now, and will be if I'm elected to City Council.
Thank you. Chelsea, do you want to answer that? Unmute.
Yes, I'd be happy to answer this one. I love that James said that ADUs are on the table now all across California. About a year ago, Governor Newsom, he changed the law regarding building these accessory dwelling units. You can have them in a converted garage. You can build a standalone unit. You can build a unit that's attached to your home. The planning department doesn't get as involved as long as you meet very strict state criteria about how to build these out. So here, and people are starting to, I'm aware of people who are doing it. I love that we have to incentivize landlords. So it's great if you have another Zoom room or you have a place to ride your Peloton, right? But if the purpose is to find more affordable housing in our town, let's find a way to support the homeowners and the landlords of these ADUs to turn them into living units for people in our city. Bringing in low-income housing directly ties to our goal as a city to diversify the landscape of our town. It's going to be to everyone's benefit if we can bring more people into our community who don't fit the financial profile of the bulk of the constituency. There isn't the room to do in Belvedere what they've done in Hillarita. We don't have the space for that. But as Mayor Kimminster said, we need to find space for 16 more in this upcoming year. And I very confidently feel that we can do that together as the town.
Great, thank you. And Steve, do you want to answer this one?
Well, I would just echo what everyone said about ADUs and JADUs. There is no discretion anymore in terms of approval of a qualifying unit that qualifies under the objective standards that the state has laid out, and that's an over-the-counter permit. So that boat has sailed in terms of people pushing back against more ADUs and JDUs. We're going to see them. So Jim's quite right that there should be a conversation around actually having those units used for additional housing as opposed to, as Chelsea mentioned, a Peloton room. That's a very good initiative in Jim's that Jim's proposing. We'll have to deal with parking, for example, and I'd be interested. I'm really interested in what some of his other ideas are around that. I wouldn't forget, however, that we have identified some other opportunities that Nancy alluded to around town, 7 Beach Road being one, and also the area of the Boardwalk Shopping Center that's owned by the land company is the second. That could both handle multiple unit housing, and part of the problem is dealing with the incorporation line with Tiburon, and we have to solve that issue as well to allow that to go forward.
Thank you. Okay, for our next question, we're going to start with James, but I'm thinking you go by Jim, so I'm going to call you Jim from now on. Okay. Is that all right if I call you Jim instead of James? Or do you have a preference?
Most people call me Jim, and my best friends call me James, so you're welcome to call me James.
All right, James, we're on. Hopefully, the Belvedere Police Force will benefit from diversity, inclusion, and de-escalation training. What other Belvedere organizations would benefit from the same training opportunity?
Well, I think all of the Belvedere organizations would. City Hall, all of the teams that work at City Hall, the commissions, the Planning Commission, the City Council, absolutely would. We learn so much by talking about these issues, by understanding perspectives, by learning what it's like to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. We learn about that by talking and by experiencing it. And I think that kind of training and inclusiveness ought to be expanded to every aspect of our community. Brian Stevenson wrote a great book. He's a great speaker and addresses a number of these issues. And he talks about proximity, that you learn about these issues, you understand someone else's experience relating to diversity by being proximate to those issues. I think that is one of the key elements that we have to incorporate in the training for the city police, the city staff, our commissions, our councils, and so forth.
Thank you. Chelsea, you want to unmute and answer that?
Absolutely. So the question was, how do we extend kind of the racial diversity training that's going to be happening at our police departments across other committees in town? Right. And I'd argue that it's bigger than the committees. It's bigger than the councils. It's every single one of us. Mayor Knitzer's daughter, she is one of the leaders at Belvedere Nursery School. Her grandson and my son go to school together. And they are starting there with 2-year-olds, with 3-year-olds, teaching them about what it means to treat people as equals, what we as a people can do to fight systemic racism in our schools, in our housing, in our communities, in every facet of American life today. So we need to work with our schools. Again, I'm a big proponent of the schools. You'll hear me talk about it all night long. Reed Union School District, St. Hilary, Belvedere Nursery School, Strawberry Preschool, all the schools that touch our community, we need to start there, and we need to start with educating our children at a young age about the value of treating people as one and as the same. I know that Brian Kimnitzer on the call the other day, he spoke about sharing the book Caste with a lot of the leaders in our town, talking about what it means to recognize the caste system that does happen in our country, even today. And again, it's not just treating people of color the same, it's treating women the same, it's treating people with disabilities, it's treating people with financial inequalities the same, and recognizing everyone for who they truly are in their heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, you want to unmute and answer?
So I believe that city employees, and if I'm not, and likely the council, but I'm not sure about the council, already undergo harassment training, which incorporates some of the things we're talking about. I know I do. in my role as a trustee at MSERA on a regular basis, and it's mandated by the state. And if we don't, we should undertake that training. But I would say that things like sensitivity training and diversity training can really only go so far. Where a lot of these habits are ingrained, and studies have shown that being trained doesn't uningrain them in you. And so having structural changes around our practices are more important than training everyone to be happy together. I think those structural changes include creating more diversity in the workplace at City Hall. I think we should be recruiting minority candidates for both administrative and public safety jobs. And I think it just starts there with recruitment. So I think that actions speak a lot more strongly than words do in this area.
Thank you. Nancy, you want to unmute and answer?
Yes, I've been fortunate to do to start the SURGE workshop. SURGE is Stand Up for Racial Justice, that all electeds in Marin have the opportunity to do. I think it should be mandatory for City Council. I think it should be offered to the Planning Commission, and I think it should be open. I've already spoken with SURGE, haven't gotten an answer back, but I'd like it to be available to the whole community. To Chelsea's point about it starting early, I have been speaking with our fabulous children's librarian, Alicia, and she, within 24 hours, put together a bibliography for me, and I will be sharing it with the kids. These are for kids of different ages. I did my Fulbright thesis on how children are politicized through literature. I was studying East Germany, but frankly, I now know I needed to look closer to home. I have found through the SURGE training that the more I learn, the more I know I need to learn. To this end, I share enthusiasm both for the book Jim referred to, which was Just Mercy, I believe you're referring to, and CAST. I think it would be great to offer those in Belvedere who want to participate in a one-book Belvedere. Perhaps we could start with CAST, and I'm looking for a facilitator. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we're starting with Chelsea for this one. What is your position on allowing 5G cell towers in Belvedere?
You guys caught me off guard with this one. A 5G tower in Belvedere. There's a lot of controversy surrounding 5G. If anybody follows the news, earlier in this COVID pandemic, there were some people who were actually trying to link COVID-19 to 5G towers. So there's a lot of emotions out there around this one. There's so many different types of pollution out there in this world. We live in a highly technological world, and we worry about what's in the bay. We worry about what toxins are in our food. And I think we do have to be cognizant about what potential dangers there could be in our environment from something like 5G. I will readily admit to everyone, I am not well versed on 5G. I don't know what dangers potentially abound. Yes, it's great to be able to shore up our infrastructure and make sure that we have the best access, that all of our devices, that our homes are connected, that our city infrastructure is supported by the best networks possible. But I imagine there would be a lot of people who were not too happy if they heard that 5G were coming to Belvedere. So I'd be willing to have a conversation like I always do. My expertise is listening to people. I'd love to walk around. I'd love to talk to our constituents and talk to them and ask them, what do you think about 5G? And then come up with a consensus with my council members on how to proceed and protect everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Steve, do you want to tackle 5G?
Yeah, no, I also, am prepared to listen to everyone, but when they have crazy talk, then, it kind of starts to go through one ear and out the other. 5G causing COVID is crazy talk. So I'm sorry to the voter if if I'm insulting you, but it just is. I'm pretty frank about things that are obvious. I mean, five cell phone signals are not ionizing radiation. They don't cause any harm. And I think it's just great that we're rolling out 5G around the country. And I have nothing more to say to it than that.
Okay, thank you. Nancy, do you want to answer that?
Yes, I don't know if anybody can actually, but I'll give it a shot. So we have not, so we were required by federal law to put a sort of a design plan, for better term, in place within a particular time frame, or to lose the opportunity to do that. That's not exactly accurate, but that's the closest I can describe it. And so the plan that is in place is that if these boxes, they're not whole towers, but if these boxes need to be installed, if federal law requires them to be installed, then in Belvedere, they will have to be integrated into existing poles. We don't yet know what is going to happen after the next election and what the regulatory agencies will do. But in case we are required to use it, that is the Belvedere plan. A lot of people in Belvedere are in the tech industry. They want the most efficient technology available, the fastest, the best. And there are people who think that 5G is the answer for that. The science on pollution, to my knowledge, is still out there. We're waiting for better data.
Thank you. James, you want to unmute, answer?
Yes, thank you. I don't have a lot to add. I would follow the science and the federal regulations. And if they change after this next election, we'll follow the next regulations. If we are required to install 5G transmission equipment, then we will do that unless there is robust consensus among reasonable, reputable scientists that it causes some serious problems. What I've heard is similar to what Steve referred to, is that 5G causes, COVID, or was responsible for disco music or all kinds of other parade of horribles. I haven't heard anything that is anywhere approaching a consensus that raises concerns. And it is a technological advance. And I do think we should pursue that unless there is some scientific consensus that says we should not.
Okay, thank you. For the next question, we'll start with Steve. Belvedere faces natural threats from wildfire, floods, sea level rise, and earthquakes. How would you grade the city's disaster preparedness efforts?
Well, so I recently became a member of the Belvedere Block Captain Steering Committee, and I think that Adam Gavser and Tom Cromwell, who's been doing this forever, have moved the ball quite a bit to keep us safe in Belvedere. There's certainly more that needs to be done. We've got an evacuation plan that needs to be dusted off and taken off the shelf and really examined to see if it's workable. I'm looking forward to working with the committee and the city on, and Nancy's also on the steering committee, so she's smiling, on an evacuation drill, because I think that that'll help pressure test our plans. We have to think about things like places of refuge and even places for shelter. People may be out of doors in the event of a disaster. Recently, I facilitated a number of grants with the Belvedere Community Foundation. We gave away a bunch of wrenches for people to turn away their shut-off valves, and those are just now being distributed, and an ice machine for people who need to store medicine in the case of a power outage. And finally, we just approved a large package for redistributing radios, emergency radios around the city. I will say that there are a number of things that we have to address. Chipper days should be expanded and continued. And we really need to underground the West Shore utility lines, because if that goes spark and the fire goes uphill. Thank you.
Okay, Nancy, would you like to unmute and answer that question?
Yes, Steve took a deep dive there, and I will just add on to this because he certainly got us started. I do want to talk about evacuation, though. I disagree that it just needs to be dusted off. I think it needs to be completely overhauled, and I have started working with staff to do this. I think that evacuation plan must respond to what we studied under lessons learned of the last Santa Rosa fires, where the fire chief said you need 2 ways out, and one is by road, and certainly on Belvedere Island, one will be by foot, because there's no way that everybody could get off the island in the event of a fire. So we're opening up some lanes in order to do that. We have upgraded the City Hall community center. We've been working for a full year since the last PSPS when we found it was inadequate. We've upgraded the IT so that people could get broadband. We've disinfected it for COVID just in case we need it. And there are a lot of other upgrades of the ice machine for medicine and the like. That is going to be our center of communications. We need more vegetation management. We need to have further conversations with the fire department to help us more in that regard than they have this past year. We will continue chipper days. We want more help from the fire department. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, James, would you like to unmute and answer that?
Sure, thank you. So the question is, how would I rate Belvedere's preparedness? And the answer I would say is good, not great, certainly capable of being improved and will be. One part of the question you asked implied that we are at a wildfire risk. And I think that's not exactly right. PG&E recently went through its ratings and decided that we are not exposed to the kind of wildfire risk that we're experiencing right now in Napa and elsewhere throughout the state. But there's no question that a fire on Belvedere would be a calamity. As Steve pointed out, the undergrounding on West Shore Road, if there was a down line and that hillside lit up, it would go straight up. The water suppression for the island runs through those 2 causeways that we were talking about earlier. If those got disrupted, we'd have a serious problem. We don't have a water storage tank on top of the island. So fire is a serious concern. An earthquake and gas-driven fire is a real problem. Handing out wrenches to turn off individual gas meters is a big deal. There's so much more that we can do, but egress is one of the biggest issues. We've got Beach Road and we've got Golden Gate. And right now, one of the biggest issues is the undergrounding on Lower Golden Gate. We may get a question about that later, but that is a serious potential problem that needs to be addressed.
Thank you. And Chelsea.
Great question again. You guys look out the window. Disaster abounds in 2020. This just feels like the year of disaster after again. The fires in the North Bay have been a big mess for everybody since 2017. And while, to Jim's point, maybe we aren't rated high on a wind fire threat or a wildfire threat in Belvedere, when the winds are roaring, those ashes blow far. And so we want to make sure that, to everybody else's point, that we're doing a good job of taking advantage of chipper days, that we're making sure that we're maintaining Belvedere, that we're keeping the brush to a minimum. There's seismic activity in the Bay Area. There's sea level rise. I've had the honor of being on the Belvedere block captain since 2017. And Adam Gasber and Tom Cromwell have done a great job of educating people about what can happen, putting together scenarios. So to Mayor Kimmitzer's point, I'd love to see us actually do a like a practice evacuation, kind of like we do at the schools. We practice for an active shooter, gosh forbid, or for an earthquake. I'd love to see us as a city actually physically prepare and have a day where we give it a shot, we give it a try. We have to stay vigilant with disaster preparedness. The person who asked this question asked, what grade do I give us? There's always room for improvement, but I give us an absolute A+ for effort. It is on the council's agenda. They have many a task force created, and I think we're on the right path. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, believe it or not, we're coming up to our very last question. Collective, huh? And we're starting with Nancy for this one. What do you think the city's top priority should be in 2021?
My 3 top priorities are keeping Belvedere safe through fire, flood, and COVID. That's just what we were talking about. To preserve the physical beauty and character of Belvedere. This sounds simple. It's not easy. It requires constant vigilance through our planning, design, and the protection of public spaces. It means improving lanes and opening the playground, fostering community through inclusiveness and the involvement of all ages, families and teenagers and seniors. We want to particularly protect our senior population, and that we are beginning to do through the WHO Age-Friendly Cities program. I'm writing the strategic plan and working with a group, starting to work with a group on that right now. Evacuation routes are high on my priority, and we must not forget continuing our prudent fiscal policy. And we need to look at this department by department. If there's any money left over, we can put it in reserve for our sea level rise levee improvements. But we really do need to keep a close eye on the budget in 2020, 2021.
Thank you. The question was actually the top priority, but that's good. You have many. Okay, James.
Yes, thank you. There are many priorities. Obviously, the budget and ordinary governmental services are critical. My answer would be for 2021, the top priority is to continue to advance our enhancement of the seawalls. We know, as a matter of scientific fact, that an earthquake could displace either or both of those roads so dramatically that we would lose water, we'd have ruptured gas lines, we'd lose electricity, and the roads could become impassable by emergency vehicles and could flood the lagoon. We could have a same earthquake could cause fires, gas fires on the island. It is the most important thing that we are dealing with right now. It's the most expensive thing we're dealing with, but it's the most important by far, not even close. And where we are right now is taking conceptual drawings and advancing them to building drawings, that is drawings that can be built from and priced, and moving forward on that. The other risk that the seawalls present is the sort of 1 in 100 year flood. We know statistically, as a matter of science, that if a 1 in 100 year flood comes, it will swamp the lagoon. And we also know that that flood could come next year just as readily as it could come 99 years from now. So floods, earthquakes, and the seawalls, I think, are our most important priority.
Thank you. Okay, Chelsea, do you want to unmute?
Thank you for this question. I agree with James. We're all saying the same thing, but disaster preparedness is paramount to the safety of everyone on this island and on the lagoon. There's so many, it's such an involved issue, right? As I've been going around the community and I've been speaking with people about the issues that are important to them, all of them come back to disaster preparedness in some way. We never talked tonight, but there's been a lot of vocal opposition and also support for Artist View, right? Part of the argument for keeping Artist View is so we have an outlet to the bay in case of an emergency. Another thing that people have brought up recently is talking about the proposed changes to the municipal code for FEMA on the lagoon. again, it's tied to disaster preparedness. So I'd love to keep going tonight so we could answer these questions, because I know they're very important to a lot of the people listening here tonight. But it comes back to preserving our city's resources financially so that we have the funds to pay for these things. We're really lucky in Belvedere to have some of the smartest people, arguably in like all of the Bay Area, running our finance committee. So I want to see our teams and our city council work with them to be able to fund all of the initiatives on the table and fund it in a manner that isn't financially devastating for the families, for the people of Belvedere who don't have unlimited resources. So again, it's on the table, keeping our city safe, and I'm committed to do whatever I can to work with everybody, hear everybody, and get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Steve, unmute.
I don't need to say more than I think that the coastal resilience, the seawall, the levees is by far the most important challenge facing Belvedere today, and it will continue to be until we accomplish something. And so how I'll approach that is with a view toward financing the project. I haven't been involved in the design element. That Jim's done a great job in moving that forward, but I'm hoping to be appointed to the finance committee by the council, and if I am, I think I'll have a real positive impact, because that's my background. I have a lot of finance background and understand how things get financed, paid for, and I have an increasingly government-oriented finance background for my time at Amsera. So I think I can help the city and move this project forward.
Thank you. Welcome back, Nancy. Okay, and that concludes the question portion of the forum. Before the candidates make their closing statements, I would like to share some key differences about how our elections will work this year, particularly in regards to how and when you can vote. As you know by now, November 3rd is Election Day. You have until October 19th to register, after which you will have to go to the elections office to register and vote in person. Due to COVID-19, the state of California has implemented new, broader voting opportunities in order to promote public safety, providing expanded vote-by-mail options as well as in-person voting. Slide 3, please. Vote-by-mail ballots will be mailed on October 5th. All active registered voters in Marin County will automatically receive a ballot in the mail. There is no need to request one. You can start voting by mail on October 6th by dropping off your completed ballot in 3 ways: at any one of 12 secure drop boxes located around the county, at the elections office in the Civic Center, or at a US Post Office. To be counted, returned ballots must be postmarked no later than November 3rd and received at the elections office no later than November 20th. Please note that Marin County pays the postage for all returned ballots. Slide 4, please. For in-person voting, polling places will be open for 4 days, October 31st through November 3rd. There will be 29 consolidated polling places. Your ballot will indicate your assigned polling location. You can vote at the elections department in the Civic Center starting October 6th during regular business hours. For more information about Dropbox and polling locations, go to marinvotes.org. Thank you. At the end of this forum, there will be a slide listing several additional websites we recommend you check out for more detailed election information, particularly votersedge.org. And now the candidates will be making closing statements of 1 minute. We will go in reverse order of the opening statements, starting with Chelsea Schlunt.
All right. So why vote me for city council? I'm educated on the issues. I'm hardworking and passionate about serving Belvedere. I have the energy to tackle the demands of the role. If elected, I will represent many of the residents in Belvedere who feel that they don't have a seat at the table. As I shared earlier, leadership must mirror its constituents, and I mirror many in this city. Let's work together to keep our finances tight. Let's foster community engagement, diversity, and inclusion. Let's protect against environmental dangers and work together to support our neighbor Tiburon in maintaining and revitalizing our shared downtown. I have to say, everyone, I'm pleased that we have a contested election this year. With all of us out there campaigning in the community, the voters are learning our names, our stories, and our positions on the important issues. So even if I don't have the honor of winning, it was a win for Belvedere. I'm grateful for your vote on November 3rd. Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight.
Thank you. And Greg, you can hide your screen or turn your, okay, thank you. Okay, James, would you like to go next, please?
Yes, thank you. In my career working for this gigantic law firm, I had a number of opportunities to have global leadership positions, mentoring the 1,400 associates around the globe, helping lead a 600 lawyer litigation department globally, which was about a $700 million a year business. I was asked to serve as the lawyer for the lawyers when those incidences came up. Those leadership opportunities came to me, I think, because I was regarded as a fair-minded, straight-shooting, hard-working, diligent person. And I've applied those skills in service on the Planning Commission, tackling very difficult issues that are contentious and passionate. The same skills on the Seawall Committee, equally contentious and passionate. And I will bring that same leadership, that same expertise to the City Council if I'm elected. Thank you for this forum, and we appreciate all the great questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Nancy, would you like to unmute and closing statement?
We've heard a lot of good ideas tonight. These are the conversations at council that really benefit Belvedere. Where I think experience matters is that it's not enough to know what you want to do. You need to know how to get it done. What agencies, committees, staff, and new volunteers to approach, what new voices to seek out, and where to find common ground. My experience has taught me how to bring people together, how to invite new people into the fold. That is why I am endorsed by every living citizen of the year and every former mayor of Belvedere and well over 200 additional. Please take a look at my website, www.chemnitzer4belvedere.com. 4 is the numeral 4. Thank you so much for this forum tonight. I've really enjoyed the evening.
Thank you. And Steve.
Well, I too want to thank the League of Women Voters and the ARC for putting together this important forum. I hope the evening's given you a chance to get to know me a little better and how I'll approach my role in City Council. I hope you walk away from tonight believing that I'll play a constructive and a unifying role for the city. If you trust me with your vote, I pledge to you that your voice will be heard on City Council and that I'll work every day to help bring Belvedere together. You can take comfort in voting for me with the over 200 leading citizens and public office holders. I think I have the same endorsement list as Nancy does, who have endorsed our campaign. If you want to learn more and maybe help Belvedere prepare for a more resilient and stronger future, please go to steveblockforbelvedere.org. That's with the F-O-R, not a 4. And follow us at Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Block for Belvedere. Thanks a lot. Have a good night and stay safe.
Thank you. This concludes our forum. Thank you to the ARC newspaper for hosting this event. Thank you to the candidates for participating and to Pat Becker for timekeeping, to Doug Cooper and Greg Brockbank as question sorters, and to Nancy Bell and Didi Buttori for Zoom support. And special thanks to the team at CMCM TV. We could not have done this without them. A video of tonight's forum will be posted on the League's website in the next few days. Slide 5, please. For more information about the election, the candidates, and ballot measures, visit the League's website at marinlwv.org and click on the Voter's Edge logo in the middle of the page. Here are some additional recommended websites. Again, thank you for joining us tonight, and most importantly, for voting.